Welcome friends to my ASMR, my fairy tale ASMR. I hope you're all doing great and enjoying your days so far. As usual, we are going through the book 365 Storybook Collection by Disney, and the two stories are A Big Surprise from the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Watchdog from Up by Pixar. This one I have never ever seen. This is completely new, but Snow White, of course, a classic. So let's get started. One spring morning, Snow White visited the dwarf's cottage to leave them a surprise. She knew the dwarfs worked hard, and she wanted to make sure that when they got home that day, they didn't have to do any more work. After the dwarfs had left for the mines, Snow White and her animal friends hurried into the cottage and set to work. The birds chirped while they picked up crumbs. The squirrels used their fluffy tails to dust, and the chipmunks washed and dried the dishes. With so many helpers, Snow White had the downstairs gleaming in no time. Next, they went upstairs and made the beds. Before long, every inch of the dwarf's cottage was neat and tidy. Back inside the cottage, Snow White and her friends fixed supper. There was soup to be simmered and bread to be made. Before she knew it, the late afternoon sun was casting long shadows across the window panes. Tweet, chirp! The bluebird was singing outside the window. That was the signal that the dwarfs were almost home. Snow White and the animals hurried outside, hid, and peeked in through a window. When they got inside, the dwarfs could not believe their eyes. The floors were swept, the room was tidy, and there was even a freshly baked pie cooling on a windowsill. "What is that delicious smell?" Dog wondered. "Look," cried Grumpy. He went to the pot of soup. The dwarfs were confused. They tried to guess which dwarf had done this. Doc noticed that Happy's smile was especially big. Was he keeping a secret? Dobby pointed out that Sneezy seemed extra sneezy. Maybe because he had dusted and swept the cottage? Snow White giggled as she listened outside the window. "They'll never guess that we did it," she whispered to her animal friends. After a long workday, their tummies pleasantly full, all seven dwarfs were ready to go to sleep. When they climbed the stairs and the dwarfs found one last treat, 7 neatly made beds. As they drifted off to sleep, the dwarfs decided to tell their good friend Snow White about this wonderful surprise the very next time they saw her. Watch Doug. Doug bounded over some rocks. The golden retriever was looking for a spot to camp for the night. Following him were his friends, Carl and Russell. Suddenly, Doug saw a good place. It had trees on 3 sides and a beautiful view across the valley. Carl put down their picnic basket. Next to it, he placed a jug of lemonade. "Okay, Russell," he said, "let's set up the tents." Carl and Russell put up tents and rolled their sleeping bags. They cooked dinner over a campfire and roasted marshmallows. Soon it was time for bed. Doug decided that he would keep watch. He was proud to have such an important job. When Carl and Russell went to bed, Doug sat outside the tents, still as a statue. Suddenly he spied something in a tree. Doug charged toward the tree and tripped over a rope that on Russell's tent. Part of the tent collapsed. Doug hung his head. He had not meant to do that. Just then, a bat swooped overhead. Doug Doug jumped up in surprise. He accidentally knocked over the pitcher of lemonade, and it spilled on the ground. Embarrassed, Doug went to stand guard near Carl's tent. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Doug snuck across the clearing. He spied an intruder. It was a raccoon, and it was trying to get their food. Move away from the basket, Doug said. That is our breakfast. The raccoon grabbed a string of sausages in its teeth. Doug took the other end. He tugged. The raccoon tugged. Finally, the raccoon let go. Doug had won. Doug triumphantly carried the sausage back to the picnic basket. They were a little dirty, and they had some leaves stuck to them, but he was sure Carl and Russell wouldn't mind. Soon the sky started to lighten and the stars began to fade. Doug was very sleepy. Being a watchdog was hard work. Honk shoo, honk shoo. Doug fell asleep. A minute later, Carl came out of his tent. He looked around the clearing and saw Russell stand. He saw the dirty sausages and the jug of lemonade. Carl sat next to Doug. Doug opened one eye. I found the intruder, he said. Yes, I heard you, Carl said. He gave Doug a pat. Good dog, good dog. And together the two watched the sun rise over the valley. Thank you so much for listening to tonight's ASMR. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.